We go to action movies for adrenaline, not accountability. The fireballs, the gunfire, the raw physicality, it's all supposed to be controlled chaos. Explosions are timed, stunts are rehearsed, blood is fake. But what if some of it wasn't? Behind the polished spectacle of car chases and slow-motion shootouts lies a far grimmer reality. In the shadows of these productions, real injuries have occurred. Real crimes, acts of negligence, abuse, or outright lawbreaking have taken place, often in silence. The screen may show fiction, but the bruises, the broken bones, and sometimes the broken laws behind those scenes are all too real. This isn't about accidents. It's about what happens when a production crew pushes boundaries and crosses ethical or even legal lines. When the need for authenticity overrides basic safety. When directors roll camera in prohibited war zones. When stunt performers are burned without insurance. When actors are left to fend for themselves with no union protections. And when all of it is buried under layers of studio silence. Some of the stories you're about to hear were only revealed years later, when cast or crew broke their silence. Others still remain whispers in dark corners of industry lore. But they all point to the same chilling truth, that sometimes what's behind the camera is far more dangerous than what's on screen. Let's dive into 15 action films where the real danger wasn't the explosion on screen but the cover-up behind it. Fact Hasson, Avenging Force, 1986. Burned without a net. He didn't scream because he couldn't. The flames had already engulfed his suit, and the air was gone. In Avenging Force, Michael Dudikoff's vigilante epic, one climactic scene features a house ablaze as the hero fights his way through. But off-camera, something else was burning literally. A stuntman performing a full-body fire gag during the shoot suffered third-degree burns when the safety gel ignited unevenly, and the team failed to extinguish him in time. The kicker? The production had reportedly cut corners on insurance. He had no coverage. Shot on a tight budget and an even tighter schedule, the film was produced during a time when regulations around stunt safety, especially in independent action films, were notoriously lax. There are conflicting accounts of what exactly went wrong. Some crews say the flame-retardant suit wasn't sealed properly. Others blame communication breakdown between pyrotechnics and first responders. What's consistent is that the production company quickly settled out of court, and the incident was never officially reported. The stuntman later disappeared from the industry. No interviews, no lawsuits, no union response. Just a scorched silence. Was it incompetence or willful negligence hidden beneath the firelight? But this was just the first spark in a long trail of behind-the-scenes disasters. Fact #2. Eye of the Tiger, 1986. A gun that wasn't a prop. A single take, a single flash, and a real bullet? Rumors have long surrounded a tense alleyway shootout in Eye of the Tiger, the revenge action vehicle for Gary Busey. While the film itself is forgettable pulp, one specific scene became the focus of heated speculation when a crew member claimed that one of the guns used fired a live round accidentally or not. Shot quickly, in low light, guerrilla style, the production was known for using real hardware in lieu of prop weapons to cut costs. According to one former PA, an improperly cleared revolver discharged during filming, narrowly missing a light tech and hitting a metal surface off-frame. No injuries were reported, but the crew was allegedly silenced under threat of blacklisting. The studio has denied any such event took place. No police reports were filed. But industry insiders cite Eye of the Tiger as a textbook example of wild set energy, a polite euphemism for chaos. In stunt forums, the shoot has been dissected repeatedly, with anonymous posters describing moments where actors didn't know if the bullets were fake or not. And yet, the scene remains in the final cut eerily real, aggressively unmentioned. Was it a close call? Or something more sinister deliberately swept under the rug? Either way, this wasn't the only film where the trigger felt a little too real. Fact #3. The Hitman, 1991. Violence that didn't end on set. What started as a fight scene ended with someone walking off set, bleeding, and not in costume. Chuck Norris's The Hitman was designed to be brutal, but not like this. Midway through filming a nightclub brawl, a physical altercation erupted between a stunt coordinator and a camera operator after repeated takes pushed performers beyond exhaustion. According to a gaffer who later went public, the fight wasn't choreographed. It was real, and it left the operator with a fractured jaw. The studio responded by quietly replacing the coordinator and halting production for 2 days. But the injured party never returned and never spoke out publicly. Allegedly, a generous severance package and NDA were involved. More troubling, insiders allege that the toxic on-set environment had been brewing for weeks, long hours, heat exhaustion, minimal safety oversight. When the violence broke out, it wasn't spontaneous, it was the inevitable result of pressure with no release valve. Publicity for the hitman continued without a hitch. Chuck Norris remained the stoic face of the production. No mention of behind-the-scenes aggression ever surfaced in mainstream press. But whispers persisted in industry circles. What kind of action film do you get when the real fight is happening behind the lens? Unfortunately, The Hitman wasn't the only production where the most dangerous scenes weren't in the script. Fact. 4. McBain 1991. Filming on forbidden ground. They didn't have permission. They just had a helicopter and a vague sense of invincibility. McBain, a bizarre Vietnam revenge fantasy starring Christopher Walken, features multiple combat scenes filmed in jungle terrain that, to the untrained eye, looked like Colombia. That's because it was Colombia parts of it, and not the tourist-friendly zones. Years after its release, leaked production notes revealed that several sequences had been shot near restricted regions controlled by paramilitary groups. No filming permits, no location clearance, just cash payments to local guides and a will to roll camera regardless. At one point, an explosion scene triggered a local militia response, resulting in a standoff that only ended when Walken himself, legend has it, stepped out to de-escalate. Though no one was harmed, the incident was quietly buried. The production moved back to the U.S. overnight, with studio PR claiming the foreign shoot had wrapped early due to weather. The footage? It made the final cut jungle, gunfire, and all. The most surreal detail? Some extras in the background may not have been actors. They might have been armed lookouts blending in. Did McBain capture raw realism, or exploit a volatile situation without accountability? It wouldn't be the last time real-world danger snuck into a fictional war. Fact #5. The Soldier, 1982. Cold War location, real Cold War trouble. They called it method filmmaking. The locals called it trespassing. The Soldier, a Cold War action thriller with spy games and sabotage, was filmed partly in East Berlin-adjacent zones during a time when political tensions made any unauthorized Western presence a potential incident. While the film's press releases boast about authentic locations, what they don't say is that some sequences were filmed without official approval, using local intermediaries and fake credentials. One nighttime scene involving a car chase reportedly led the production across a border checkpoint, accidentally or otherwise. The East German guards didn't fire, but a crew member claimed the group was detained, questioned, and released only after bribes and frantic calls to embassy contacts. The footage still made it into the movie. The studio later denied filming in East Germany at all, insisting it was stock footage and doubles. But lighting and topography experts have confirmed. Those shadows, those buildings, they don't lie. The unspoken rule was simple. Don't provoke a superpower with a film shoot. The Soldier danced on the edge and got away with it. Was it gutsy filmmaking or an international violation disguised as cinema? And yet, compared to what came next, it almost seems tame. Fact #6. The Exterminator, 1980. Underground scenes, unlicensed pain. He plays a man who takes justice into his own hands. The film crew did the same with safety regulations. In The Exterminator, a grimy vigilante film about retribution in New York, one sequence shows the lead character torturing a gangster in a rat-infested underground tunnel. The claustrophobia is real. So are the rats. But what wasn't supposed to be real? The injuries. That tunnel wasn't a set, it was an abandoned utility corridor beneath the Bronx, and it wasn't up to code. Multiple crew members reported breathing issues due to chemical residue, while one stunt performer required stitches after a rusty beam collapsed during a take. Worse still, union reps weren't notified, and the shoot was never registered with the city. A production assistant later confessed that the location was chosen because it looked disgusting and nobody would stop us. That same assistant quit mid-shoot after witnessing what he described as willful endangerment and zero medical backup. To this day, The Exterminator is praised for its grimy realism. But how much of that realism was just raw danger passed off as art? When pain becomes part of the aesthetic, who's responsible when it stops being pretend? And The Exterminator was far from the last film to blur that line. Fact #7, Deadly Prey, 1987, hunted without consent. They were told they were extras. What they became were targets. Deadly Prey is infamous for its over-the-top premise. Mercenaries, kidnapping civilians, and hunting them for sport. But during production, the line between fiction and recklessness blurred dramatically. Several unpaid local extras, hired for jungle ambush scenes, later claimed they were never informed real explosives would be used near their positions until the explosions happened. Shot in wooded areas outside Mobile, Alabama, the film's budget was minimal. Safety standards were almost non-existent. According to one production runner, communication between pyrotechnics and the extras coordinator was so poor that detonations occurred within 10 feet of where people were crouching without warning. At least 2 extras reportedly suffered hearing damage. To make matters worse, none of the participants were covered by insurance. When complaints were raised, they were met with dismissal. Some alleged they were pressured to sign retroactive waivers under threat of losing their day rates. The footage? It looks intense, frantic, shaky, almost too real. Now we know why. Was the chaos the result of guerrilla filmmaking or something more negligent, even criminal? One thing is certain. It wouldn't be the last time realism came at the cost of human safety. Fact #8. Shakedown, 1988. The fall that shouldn't have happened. There were no mats, no spotters, just the edge of a bridge and a camera rolling. In Shakedown, a street-level crime thriller set in gritty late 80s New York, one standout stunt features a man falling from the Manhattan Bridge onto a moving train car. The stunt was performed practically with no CGI, no doubles, and, as it turns out, no proper safety rigging. The performer, whose name was omitted from the credits, reportedly suffered a spinal compression injury upon landing. According to leaked call sheets and hospital records, the production had opted to go minimal with equipment to avoid permit delays. The padding was thin, the coordination rushed, and the aftermath brutal. The studio later stated the scene was heavily rehearsed and executed under strict safety supervision. But the stunt community tells a different story. In interviews decades later, colleagues called it one of the most dangerous and preventable injuries of the decade. The performer involved never returned to stunt work. Ironically, the scene was hailed for its gritty realism. Audiences winced. Critics praised its raw impact. No one knew someone had paid for that realism with permanent injury. When danger becomes a selling point, who draws the line between stunt and sacrifice? Unfortunately, this wouldn't be the only time New York's skyline masked a brutal truth. Fact #9, Lone Wolf McQuade, 1983. Buried in the dust. Chuck Norris can survive anything. His crew? Not so much. In Lone Wolf McQuade, Norris plays a Texas Ranger who battles criminals and the elements in a film packed with dirt, explosions, and roaring engines. But one desert sequence, involving a buried truck that blasts out of the sand, caused more than cinematic mayhem. According to crew reports, multiple people suffered heat, stroke, and chemical exposure during the multi-day shoot. The sand used to bury the vehicle was a synthetic dust blend designed to reduce glare on camera. Problem is, it wasn't tested for inhalation safety. Under the brutal New Mexico sun, several crew members collapsed. One camera operator was reportedly hospitalized for respiratory distress. The production paused briefly but never filed official incident reports. Years later, former set medics revealed that the set lacked basic hydration protocols, shade structures, or air circulation. And yet the scene, a truck erupting from gritty soil as Norris stands triumphant, remains a fan favorite. No audience ever saw the oxygen tanks just off camera, or the crew coughing behind the dunes. Was it worth it for one unforgettable shot, or did the dust cover more than just the lens? The deeper we go, the more we realize. The action wasn't the only thing that left people breathless. Fact Hassan 0, bulletproof, 1,988. Bruises and broken contracts. He didn't fall wrong. He wasn't supposed to fall at all. In Bulletproof, a military-themed action flick headlined by Gary Busey, one key stunt involved a soldier being blasted backwards through a window during a surprise ambush. But according to interviews with former crew members, the actor performing the stunt wasn't a stuntman and wasn't prepped for the gag. The problem began during a reshoot. The original stunt performer was unavailable, and the production, pressed for time, had a bit part actor do the scene under the assumption it was low risk. Except the explosive charge behind the glass was miscalibrated, launching the actor further than intended. He smashed into a railing, cracking 2 ribs. An ambulance was called, but no incident was ever logged in production records. The actor in question later claimed he was told not to speak to media, and his medical costs were only partially reimbursed. The studio denied liability, stating, "The performer agreed to proceed." The actor never worked in film again. The scene? It made the final cut pain and all. Was it an accident of logistics or a conscious decision to gamble with someone's safety? Either way, it wasn't the only time a low-budget film treated human bodies like props. Fact Hassan, Red Scorpion, 1,988. Injuries in a real war zone. The explosions were real. The regime was real. The danger? All too real. Red Scorpion, a Cold War-era vehicle for Dolph Lundgren, was filmed in Namibia, then a flashpoint of political unrest. Officially, the production claimed full cooperation with local authorities. Unofficially, reports suggest the film crew operated within proximity of active conflict zones, exposing cast and crew to serious risk. In one documented incident, a controlled explosion misfired near a camp used by guerrilla fighters. Security contractors reportedly escorted the crew out overnight. One pyrotechnics assistant suffered hearing damage. Another was treated for shrapnel injuries. None of this was made public. More disturbing, several humanitarian groups later accused the production of employing off-duty paramilitaries as guards without proper screening, raising questions about labor ethics and possible weapons violations. The film's press tour painted it as a bold shoot in an exotic location. But the reality was closer to reckless adventurism, masked as production value. When the boundary between war and movie set collapses, what's left standing? And Red Scorpion wasn't the only time filmmakers crossed that invisible line. Fact Hassan 2, The Dogs of War, 1,980. Mercenaries behind the scenes. The actors were pretending to be mercenaries. Some of the crew weren't pretending. Based on the novel by Frederick Forsyth, The Dogs of War aimed to portray a gritty, realistic depiction of a coup in a fictional African nation. To achieve authenticity, the production allegedly hired ex-mercenaries as consultants, and in some cases, performers. One such individual, according to journalist accounts, was under active investigation for weapons trafficking at the time. Sources from the set later revealed that live firearms were present during early shoots in West Africa, brought in unofficially by consultants. During a nighttime sequence, a rifle discharged, narrowly missing a production assistant. There were no rehearsals, no blanks, just a real gun, fired by a man who was not an actor. The studio's official response? Silence. The film was marketed as gritty, real, and uncompromising, which apparently extended to its casting decisions. Behind the cinematic realism was a troubling truth. The boundary between fiction and militarism had been blurred in ways neither legal nor safe. Did the filmmakers cross a line or hire people who never saw it in the first place? And as we near the end of this list, one thing becomes clear. The worst offenses are often hiding in plain sight. Fact Hassan 3. The Punisher, 1,989. Bruised egos, broken bones. The violence on screen wasn't personal. Off-screen, it was. In the 1989 adaptation of The Punisher, Dolph Lundgren played a brooding anti-hero dishing out brutal justice. But one infamous fight scene between Lundgren and a villain henchman reportedly escalated into a real fistfight mid-take, and the cameras kept rolling. Insiders say tensions had been mounting between the star and the stunt team due to repeated takes and disagreements about choreography. During one sequence in an underground lair, a misthrown punch landed hard and retaliation followed. What was supposed to be a staged brawl devolved into actual punches, knees, and blood. The crew didn't call cut. They filmed the entire thing. Post-production notes allegedly include references to using the real take for impact. The scene remains in the movie, though cleverly edited. Neither actor addressed it publicly, but one crew member claimed the fight left both men with bruised ribs. The studio played it off as method acting. But behind the scenes, the message was clear. If it looked real, don't stop it, capture it. When a performance becomes a real assault, and no one intervenes, is it art or negligence? And The Punisher wasn't the only shoot where revenge escaped the script. Fact Hasson 4. Firepower, 1,993. Choked for the camera. He was supposed to pretend to pass out. Instead, he actually did. Firepower, a low-budget sci-fi action hybrid, features martial artist Gary Daniels in a futuristic cage match. During filming of a submission scene, Daniels applies a chokehold to a fellow actor who, according to multiple accounts, lost consciousness for real after Daniels held the move too long. The camera rolled for nearly 10 seconds before anyone realized the limp body wasn't acting. On-set medics revived the actor, who reportedly suffered minor neurological effects and had trouble speaking for hours. The director allegedly praised the footage for its realism and insisted it be kept in the final cut, though shortened. No formal complaint was filed. The injured actor, desperate for career momentum, declined to speak publicly. Daniels has never commented on the event, but the moment remains etched in the film, blurred, stylized, but all too real. Was it a miscommunication between professionals or the normalization of real violence as entertainment? And then came one last film that took silence to a disturbing new level. Fact Hasson 5. Stone Cold, 1,991. A death, a rewrite, and no credits. The scene was rewritten, the credits were altered, but the incident? Never forgotten by those who were there. Stone Cold stars NFL legend Brian Bosworth in a biker cop mayhem fantasy. During filming of a high-speed motorcycle chase, a stunt performer lost control on a slick bridge and crashed, suffering fatal injuries on impact. The scene had involved pyrotechnics and multiple moving vehicles. The crew claimed the performer veered outside the safe zone. What happened next was chilling. The scene was reshot with a different setup. The original performer's name was quietly removed from all promotional materials, and no public statement was ever issued. The family was reportedly given a settlement under NDA. Industry databases list the performer as retired. Some crew members later described the atmosphere on set as cold, efficient, corporate. No memorial, no pause. Just an altered schedule and business as usual. The final film contains a similar chase but sanitized, with fewer stunts. What audiences didn't know was that one of those stunts had cost a life, and the system chose erasure over responsibility. When someone dies for a movie and no one outside the set ever knows, what does that say about the value of spectacle? It's the kind of truth that doesn't fit neatly into a closing credits reel. Bonus fact: The Octagon, 1,980. Silent threats, silenced whistleblower. This one didn't make the top 15, but it might just be the most unsettling of all. In Chuck Norris's The Octagon, a film drenched in martial arts mystique and Cold War paranoia, one story from behind the scenes has circulated only in hushed tones, never officially confirmed, never legally pursued. It involves a production assistant, identified only by initials in industry forums, who claimed to have witnessed an illegal weapons transfer occur during the shoot. According to the anonymous source, some of the armaments used on set were not rented through standard prop channels but sourced directly from private sellers with questionable paperwork, if any. When the assistant raised concerns, they were allegedly threatened by a member of the crew and told to stay out of the grown-ups business. Days later, their contract was terminated without cause. The story might have been dismissed as rumor until years later. A customs investigation into unrelated arms trafficking included a line referencing a 1,980 film set used for smuggling components. The title was redacted. The timeline matched The Octagon. Chuck Norris has never commented. The studio? Defunct. No charges were filed. No confirmation ever surfaced. But the idea lingers like smoke in the rafters. What if a martial arts film lauded for its realism was more than just choreography? What if the deadliest elements on set weren't even part of the script? And what happens to those who try to speak when the silence is worth more than the truth? Which of these revelations shocked you the most? Were these just unfortunate accidents in the name of realism, or did some productions knowingly cross the line and cover their tracks? We want to hear your take. Was it the unreported death? The real weapons smuggled onto set? Or the stunt that left someone permanently injured and erased? Tell us in the comments. Where do you draw the line between action and accountability?